poter aspettare l'ultimo check.
Ci siamo.
Mi danno check finale, quindi posso cominciare? Ok, allora, buongiorno a tutti, per chi si sta collegando, per chi si collegherà. Mi chiamo Michele Masotto, sono un infermiere specialista in emergenza e urgenza. Al momento lavoro per il servizio di anestesia in Svizzera, a Lugano. Faccio una piccola parentesi, ringrazio Hospital Swiss Anesthesia che mi ha dato l'opportunità di essere qua oggi. Di fianco a me c'è Andrew J. Witch, un mio carissimo amico, best friend, e un fly nurse che, come per molti di voi sanno già, noi ogni edizione del nostro Cadaver Lab, che sottolineo essere stato il primo Cadaver Lab in Italia e che tuttora, diciamo così, con una serie di improving, una serie di migliorie, stiamo cercando di portare sempre più in alto e soprattutto sempre più in grado di soddisfare le richieste dei professionisti sanitari, infermieri, medici e paramedici in giro per il mondo. Oggi abbiamo deciso di fare questa conference, questa mini conference di circa un'oretta riguardo la figura del fly nurse. Ecco perché abbiamo voluto sfruttare e ringraziare Andrew Stanford Life Flight, che è dove Andrew lavora in California, essendo il nostro ospite. Come dicevo, ogni data di ogni Cadaver Lab noi abbiamo un ospite americano che viene e ci porta l'esperienza. Sottolineo che il prossimo Cadaver Lab avremo Ale Wolf, che è un altro fly nurse dall'America che lavora per Air Methods, con cui faremo un'altra conference e si parlerà dell'attacco delle torri gemelle. Quindi per chi può interessare sarà un meeting, una conference sia in live ma anche una conference fatta face to face, quindi con un pubblico, quindi vi daremo informazioni a riguardo. Introduco due parole di quello che è Andrew per poi lasciare la parola a lui e far sviluppare la sua conference. Andrew, come vi dicevo prima, è un fly nurse esperto in emergenza e urgenza, viene da una serie di esperienze di intensive care unit, quindi terapia intensiva e rianimazione. Ha fatto un percorso che vi spiegherà poi lui riguardo questa figura, e quindi oggi andiamo a sviscerare in modo definitivo, soprattutto per molte persone che spesso mi scrivono, ci chiedono: ma spiegateci come lavora questo infermiere sugli elicotteri in America, cosa fa, le competenze, le skill. Ecco, oggi lui vi risponderà, vi spiegherà tutto il percorso che viene fatto per diventare fly nurse negli Stati Uniti, le varie competenze e, diciamo così, anche i confronti che si hanno tra altre figure mediche nell'ambito ospedaliero e di emergenza. Secondo me è un'opportunità molto importante che va sfruttata. Vi chiedo, al di fuori dei partecipanti che abbiamo qui, che ci stanno ascoltando, che faranno delle domande, perché ho già mani alzate, se chi è online e ha delle domande vi chiedo di scriverle, poi le notiamo e a fine della conference faremo queste domande, così Andrew potrà rispondervi. Ecco. Quindi lascio la parola a Andrew J. Witch, ospite per noi Cadaver Lab e MPT Solutions.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Buongiorno to all my Italian friends. This morning I'm going to talk a little bit about flight nursing in the United States. Just a little bit about me. I'm actually born in South Africa. And I trained as a registered nurse in South Africa as well. Prior to being an RN, I was a paramedic in the early 1990s. I've been a registered nurse since 1995 after completing my bachelor's of nursing in South Africa. I completed a master's in critical care nursing following that. Many years experience in the intensive care unit, trauma and emergency nursing. I also have been able to travel and work abroad in various medical positions, and I immigrated to the United States in 2003 as a foreign nurse traveler. with a green card, which is quite nice. Now I've been a flight nurse at Stanford Hospital in Palo Alto, home of Facebook and Google, since 2011. So a little bit about the history of flight nursing in the United States. Originally, it originated by women, typically women initially serving through the American Red Cross as war nurses in World War I and World War II, followed by nurses being operational in the Korean War as well as in the Vietnam War. Oftentimes nurses were transporting patients back to the United States and also to parts of Europe and the UK by aeroplane. The first civilian flight nurses, however, were at St. Anthony's Hospital in Colorado, which the first flight program that was really recognized was Flight for Life in Colorado. They operated out of an Alouette helicopter. These nurses were sought out specifically by physician directors who oversaw the flight program for being very experienced and highly educated registered nurses. Most of these nurses in the early days had a strong background in intensive care and emergency room nursing. Through the physicians who oversaw them, they received further training in anesthesia, intubation, advanced skills, as well as aeronautics. The picture up here shows some of the nurses, the early nurses in the Alouette helicopter, a French-made helicopter. Those were the very early nurses starting their new specialty back then. I have another picture here of a nurse with some very old equipment, LifePak 5 monitor defibrillator, as you can see. But nurses were really the first people to be flying sick patients, critical patients, and patients from trauma by helicopter in the United States. One of the big things that one has to realize is the United States has, because of a for-profit motive, has had an exponential growth in air ambulance and helicopter bases. And as you can see on this map, this was from last year, there's an exceptional large number. Each one of those large dots represents a helicopter base. So there are well over 1,000 helicopter bases in the United States.
The right side.
More than 1,000 helicopter bases now in the United States. Okay, I'm just moving across here so you can see me. I think one of the big things is some of the types of the operating models in the United States. Originally, all the helicopter EMS operations were hospital-based. They were owned and operated by hospitals, and the crews were typically, the nurses were typically from the hospital. Initially, they flew with two nurses, or in some cases, they flew with a doctor and a nurse. In the late 1980s, early 1990s, a community-based model developed, which was independent and it was based at airports, fire stations, and change occurred in response to increased remuneration. There were changes in legislation, and therefore there was a profit motive, incentive for big companies and corporations to expand and to open more helicopter bases around the US. So gradually there's been a decline in hospital-based services and a huge growth in community-based services, typically owned by large for-profit corporations such as Air Methods, Petroleum Helicopters International, and Air Medical Group Holdings. In the last couple of years, there's been a development of the alternative delivery model, where the hospital employs the nurse and the paramedics and provides medical direction, and the large corporate does the billing, communications, and sees to the overhead. Some of the big for-profit corporations in the United States, PHI, as I've mentioned, Air Medical Group Holdings, Medtrans, and also Air Methods Corporation. So many people want to ask, especially those of you from Europe, about the crew configurations in the United States. So initially, as I mentioned, many flight programs were initially staffed by a doctor, typically somebody in the emergency department, and a registered nurse. This became too expensive in the United States. And the United States is a pretty wealthy country. but it became too expensive in the United States to have doctors on board every helicopter. Plus, they were unable to get out of the ER in a really sort of expeditious and timiest manner. So the big thing was that it was cost prohibitive, and so they were looking at other solutions. And one of those solutions was that they have 2 nurses on the helicopter with the physician oversight. So the medical director, physician, would oversee the flight nurse's practice, would also develop protocols and also provide training to the flight nurses. In the late 70s and the early 1980s, there was a newcomer to EMS, namely the paramedic. The paramedic hadn't existed until that time. The paramedic was also cheaper than a registered nurse in terms of the salary that they got paid. And so many hospital-based services substituted one of the registered nurses with a paramedic. The community-based services development, which was the for-profit side, only staff a registered nurse and paramedic configuration. And this is largely due to a cost consideration. They have to have a registered nurse on board for the critical care side and administer many of the medications and procedures which paramedics are often not permitted to administer. Some of the other configurations for crews in the United States are registered nurse, respiratory therapist, that's RRT, registered nurse, nurse practitioner, and registered nurse, physician's assistant. But the most common still is the registered nurse and paramedic. Some of the selection requirements, you need to be a graduate of a nursing program. So typically in the United States these days, you need to have a bachelor's in nursing science just to begin the process. Following that, you need about 3 to 5 years critical care experience, typically the intensive care or the emergency department. You need additional certifications, ACLS, PALS, CPR, TPATC, ATLS or PHTLS. Typically for flight nurses we say the TPATC, that's Transport Provider Advanced Trauma Course, is the one that's most recommended. We also require you to have a board certification, such either your CCRM, Critical Care Registered Nurse, Certified Emergency Nurse, or your Trauma Certified Registered Nurse. And then if you've been flying already, you typically have a Certified Flight RN or Certified Transport RN. We do strongly encourage people who are applying for flight program positions to become members of ASNA or to be members of ASNA. We also recommend that you do a fly along at a local flight program and also have some pre-hospital experience. If you've been an EMT or EMT paramedic or a critical care transport nurse, that definitely helps as well. In my books, the more experience you have as a registered nurse being in intensive care and emergency department, the better applicant you make. Orientation usually consists of, usually lasts for about 2 or 3 months. The initial 1 to 2 months is usually as a third person on board the helicopter. Following that, you get paired up typically with your preceptor. Initially, there's a 2 to 3 week period of didactic or classroom teaching, covering various areas: physics of flights, gas laws, trauma management, airway management, cardiology, cardiovascular surgery, etc., as well as safety. This is followed by skills training in managing airways, placing IOs, surgical airways, thoracostomies, central line placements, etc. Then also quite a big portion of your training is involved in high fidelity simulation scenarios, or where you're actually tested by your medical director and he observes you practice in the simulation department. Your practice is based on protocol knowledge. Then also you have to spend some time in the various clinical areas within the hospital, the intensive care units, the emergency department, particularly the pediatric ICU, the neonatal ICU, the labor and delivery ward, and also we get sent at my program, we get sent to the airport control tower at the local airport. We also go to the fire department and observe extrication procedures, and then also spend time riding on the ambulance with paramedics. One of the other things in terms of orientation is that from day one you have a dedicated preceptor, or so that's somebody who's going to be dedicated to orienting just you to the new role as a flight nurse. So this is one of my two of my colleagues back home in California To the right is Cheryl. She's a nurse practitioner now. She's also a very experienced flight nurse. And she was precepting Scott Gordon, who's spoken here at EMTP Solutions in the past as well. So he's well known to some of you. He's undergoing training. This was when he started, so I was one of his preceptors along with Cheryl. Some of the responsibilities for flight nurses includes a shift check of all equipment and medications that happens both on day shift and night shift. We participate in the pilot's briefing before the shift starts. We respond to scene calls, inter-facility transfers and team calls. We ensure the safety in all operations. The safety is paramount, and it's the most important thing that we do as flight nurses on every single mission. We assist with the pilot with aviation operations, navigation, communicating via the radios, and also assessing landing zones. Once we get on scene and we make patient contact, we are involved in assessing the patient and examining them. We determine the need for interventions, whether they need intubation or various medications. We're then involved in packaging them or preparing them for transport and then loading them into the helicopter. We include management of the patient in flight, so if the patient's condition should change, we're able to intervene, provide medications, perform procedures. Then before we arrive at the hospital, we give a report. If it's a trauma, we do a trauma activation for the trauma center and let them know that we're coming in. And then finally, we do a handover to the trauma team within the trauma department or the emergency room or the intensive care unit. This is a picture of one of the calls that I was on a few months ago, me receiving report from the paramedic on scene. My colleagues, you can't see them, but they're actually inside the ambulance already starting to connect the patient to the monitors, etc. This is afterwards. I've performed, administered the general anesthetic and placed the tube into the patient's lungs, or trachea at this time, and you can see I'm ventilating the patient and we're getting prepared to move the patient over to the helicopter, and then you can see the helicopter in the background as we move the patient with assistance from the fire department. Some of the other responsibilities that are not as glamorous, not as sexy, include documentation. We all hate doing that, writing the chart after the call. Also ordering supplies for the helicopter and for the base. Cleaning the helicopter, restocking. On a Saturday at my program, we spend the morning pulling everything out of the helicopter and scrubbing it down so it's nice and clean. We also do outreach, marketing, public relations, and also training with firefighters and EMS agencies. We also have to do equipment inventories where we make sure that we've got all of our equipment and that their maintenance is maintained. We also have to do a lot of ongoing online training. Every shift involves peer review of charts from our colleagues, so we review their charts and make sure that it meets the standards. We attend meetings, obviously. Many of us are part of committees as well, and then also, very importantly, we're involved in precepting and orientating new flight nurses to the flight program. So different types of calls that we encounter as flight nurses in the United States. The first one is what we call the scene calls, or the 911 calls, and they usually call us, it's usually the fire department or the emergency medical services call us because the patient's acutely injured or ill, and it's a long distance to the nearest hospital or it's inaccessible. So those are the first ones of maybe trauma, medical, obstetric, pediatrics, cardiac, you name it. We can be called, and most times we don't know what we're going to until we actually arrive on scene and see the patient in the back of the ambulance. The other type of call that we do is the inter-facility transfers, and these are between emergency departments and traumas to ICU, but they can also be ICU to ICU, ER to OR, operating room or operating theatre, or ICU to OR, or even OR to OR, where we go in, patients in surgery, having surgery, and something goes wrong, and we have to take the patient from the operating room back to Stanford and straight to the operating room so the surgery can be completed. We do everything at Stanford, at least my program. We do transport patients with intra-aortic balloon pumps, patients who are on ECMO, VV and VA ECMO, patients receiving assistance from the impeller, LVADs, transvenous pacing, and acute critical care patients who are extremely unstable hemodynamically. Patients also receiving advanced ventilation modalities such as PRVC and APRV, patients with severe ARDS that are dependent upon these modes in order to survive. And then lastly, the final type of transport that we do is the team transports, and that's where we take a pediatric nurse or a neonatal ICU nurse and we fly out with a respiratory therapist from their department and go and retrieve patients, sick kids and babies, newborn babies from outlying hospitals and bring them back to Stanford. Every now and again we do take a physician with us if the child is particularly critical. Just a picture of one of my colleagues there with a balloon pump on the left-hand side. We take all patients. There's no such thing, at Life Flight at least, as an unstable patient. Every patient gets transported and our job is to stabilize them. One of the very big important things that I always tell nurses to think about is being a member of a professional association, particularly a specialty nurses association. Flight and transport nursing is a specialty in nursing. It's a specific association representing flight and transport nursing specialties exists for registered nurses. The association provides position statements, white papers, provides training such as the TPATC course, and a new course that's coming out shortly is the Pediatric Advanced Transport course, specifically aimed at those who transport children and neonates. The professional association, and the one I'm speaking about is ASNA, also publishes textbooks, provides benefits to members such as conference discounts, discounts on the publications, and then ASNA, or the professional association, also speaks on behalf of the specialty to government affairs, endorses various bills and legislation. Also, we arrange the national conferences such as the Critical Care Transport Medicine Conference. So here, for you guys can see it, ASNA is the Air and Surface Transport Nurses Association. ASNA.org is the website. And I definitely encourage you guys to become a member today. We have nurses all over the world, but many nurses in Canada, we have nurses in Italy, we have nurses in Japan and New Zealand. There are many benefits, including getting the Air Medical Journal every 2 months. So there's the website if you're interested in joining, and I strongly encourage that as a specialty nurse. All flight programs, or many of them, are strongly encouraged in the United States to be accredited. EMS, critical care transport programs in the United States, they're strongly encouraged to become CAMES accredited, which is the Commission on Accreditation of Medical Transport Systems. It's becoming common now in Europe as well. URAMI is a similar type organization. There's now CAMES Europe exists, and I think we're going to see that being more common involving flight programs in Europe. They set industry-wide standards for programs to meet. It's not compulsory, but it's highly desirable for your transport program. It's also, however, an expensive investment. And then there we have the CAMES website at the bottom, cames.org. You can look at their website and you can look at the current standards for accreditation on there as well for free. One of the big things that we're required to have as transport nurses in the United States is have a specialty board certification. Particularly the certification I'm talking about is the CFRN, the Certified Flight Registered Nurse, or the Certified Transport RN, which is the Certified Transport RN, CTRN, board certification. And typically when you start at a flight program in the United States, you're required to have one of these certifications within 18 months to 2 years after you've been hired. It's a pretty difficult exam, and once you get it, you feel a definite sense of accomplishment. Required experience in HEMS and transport, as well as the knowledge. So it's not one that's just for somebody who's book smart. You need to actually have the experience to be able to take the exam and be successful in passing it. It's administered online, so that's a great advantage at various testing centers in the USA and also some places overseas as well. There's a lot of information on the website that I'll show you in a moment. And the specialty board certifications, the CFRN and CTRN, are owned and issued by the Board of Certifications for Emergency Nursing, or the BCN. So that's their logo. It's a new logo. It just actually came out a week ago. But they're the organization that certifies flight and transport nurses. I will add, they also certify emergency nurses, trauma nurses, and pediatric emergency nurses as well. So there's a bunch of different certifications that you can have through BCN. So bcn.org, if you're interested. I know some of my friends here in Italy are considering taking their CFRN exam through the BCN. One of the other big things that I tell people to think about and to do is to attend conferences. And there's so many really good conferences in the United States that have it as their specialty, transport medicine and transport nursing. One of the big ones is coming up now in October in Phoenix, Arizona. It's probably a little bit late to register, but if you've got some time off, I'd strongly recommend it. That's the Air Medical Transport Conference, or AMTC. You can find the information about the conference at AIMS.org, www.aims.org. I left the org out. Then the other one is the Critical Care Transport Medicine Conference, which is actually being held next year in April in Albuquerque, New Mexico, from the 14th to the 17th. You can go to asma.org, the professional nurses specialty organization, and there'll be information posted on the website. Another really good one, which I actually attended this year, was the National Teaching Institute and Critical Care Exposition. And you can go to aacn.org, and they have great conferences and events. And ASNA actually have the transport stage on at that conference with transport-specific related talks and lectures. The latest one, which is really great to see it growing, is the Every Coast Helicopter Operations, or ECHO. They just had their annual conference now in Chattanooga in Tennessee. And next year it'll actually be in West Virginia, so it's out in the nature kind of place from the 3rd to the 5th of April next year. And you can check out their website at echoheliops.org. Right now, I'll open the floor to any questions. If there's any questions from any of you guys, any of those of you that are listening in on webinars, and feel free to post your questions online or to our colleagues here, and they'll ask them of me, and I'll try and answer them for you. It's just a picture of some of my colleagues back at Stanford. They're great people, they're good-looking people as well, and they're incredibly skilled, and I'm honored to work with these awesome professionals. So, any questions?
Thanks a lot, Andrew. So I got some questions by the public here. So I tell you the questions. So the first one is there any tension? Is there any tension between physician or doctors and flight nurses?
No, there's no tension and conflict or anything like that. We work very well collaboratively. There's mutual respect for each other. We transport patients to the ICUs and to the ORs and the trauma units, and the doctors are attentive to what we're going to be telling them about the patient. They respect our job as we respect theirs, and we work collaboratively in a professional manner. There's great respect for both nurses for doctors and doctors for the flight nurses particularly. I understand that that's not the case elsewhere, which is sad. But in America, there's great collaboration between nurses typically. Doctors trust nurses a lot, especially with these types of patients that are incredibly ill or sometimes very badly injured. They trust the nurses to make the right decisions and perform the right type of interventions.
Grazie, thanks Andrew. Faccio una traduzione veloce di ciò che abbiamo detto. Allora, io ho chiesto, un nostro infermiere qua nel pubblico chiede se ci sono tensioni, scontri o confronti comunque non costruttivi tra i medici presenti nei trauma center che accolgono i pazienti portati dai fly nurses e i fly paramedic, nelle realtà in cui erano i fly paramedic, perché è un po', direi, il punto saldo di quello che invece sta succedendo in Italia. Quello che lui dice, e che è quello che voi, chi sa bene inglese ha capito, è che non esistono scontri tra queste due figure sanitarie, appunto perché ognuno rispetta l'altro. Questo perché, secondo me e secondo noi come MPT Solutions, la priorità è il paziente, non è la targhetta. Questa è una cosa che in Italia, a mio parere, deve essere ancora insegnata probabilmente, ed è un punto in cui l'Italia deve lavorare molto. Quindi nella realtà degli Stati Uniti c'è una grande collaborazione fra entrambe le figure, e la cosa importante è che il paziente arrivi stabile e nelle migliori condizioni possibili. Ok, Andrew, I tell you another question by our public. So, does not having a physician on board the copter makes any difference in terms of patient outcomes?
There's actually been no study, and I've done an exhaustive literature review using PubMed, using the Stanford University Library resources. So I've done a lot of research into this because I know in Europe it's believe that they create or they ensure that patients have better outcomes because there's a physician on board. But scientifically and per the literature, there is no difference in outcomes. At least in the United States, with a nurse and a paramedic or two nurses, there's no difference in patient outcomes whether there was a nurse and a doctor or two nurses or a nurse and a paramedic. So in terms of patient outcomes, it's shown that nurses and paramedics, which is the usual crew configuration in the United States, do as good a job as a physician and a nurse or a physician and a paramedic would have done. Having a physician on board, let me say clearly, does not change patient outcomes. In fact, from what I've observed overseas, physicians tend to stay on the scene much longer. They want to treat the patient on the scene instead of getting the patient to the hospital. Okay? What patients need is definitive care, and we need to implement that stuff on the go. But in terms of what the literature shows, there's no difference in patient outcomes, whether you have a physician on board or a nurse and paramedic on board. So you can't argue against the literature and the evidence that's out there.
Thanks a lot, Andrews. It is really pretty interesting. Allora, la seconda domanda che è stata fatta è riguardo quello che un po' ci domandiamo tutti in Italia, in Europa, in altre parti del mondo, e se c'è qualche differenza tra avere un medico, un physician sull'elicottero o avere, come in questo caso Andrew, come fly nurse, cioè, o comunque la figura del fly nurse sull'elicottero, senza la presenza medica. Qui chiaramente apriamo un dibattito che potrebbe essere infinito, che potrebbe anche far nascere una serie di scontri, ma è giusto parlarne perché ormai siamo nel 2020 e certe cose che noi facciamo oggi qua in Italia, in America, sono stati fatti 50 anni fa, giusto per rendere conto della differenza temporale che c'è. La cosa importante che sottolinea Andrew è che a livello di letteratura non esiste alcun studio fatto a livello internazionale su quello che sono le differenze tra avere due infermieri o un infermiere o un paramedico o il medico sopra. Loro hanno fatto però degli studi personali nella quale hanno evidenziato che non ci sono differenze in termini di qualità sul paziente, alcuna differenza, e quello che invece è stato sottolineato che probabilmente per l'ampio studio o lungo percorso che ha un medico, anche se il percorso che ha fatto Andrew comunque richiede molti anni di percorso, il medico tende a restare sul territorio, sulla scena, molto più tempo rispetto a quello che è un infermiere specialista insieme a un paramedico o un altro infermiere specialista. Quindi diciamo che la risposta di questa domanda è no, non ci sono differenze tra un servizio fatto tra due infermieri specialisti o un infermiere specialista e un paramedico rispetto al classico equipaggio, per esempio in Italia, infermiere e medico specialista. Facciamo l'ultima domanda, poi vediamo se c'è qualcun altro online che ha fatto alcune domande e dopo andiamo verso la fine di questo primo meeting. Andrew, last question for you, maybe. So, is any different in terms of knowledge base between fly nurse and fly paramedic? Per chi sta ascoltando, la domanda che abbiamo fatto è: ci sono differenze? Allora, nel caso di Andrew, lui vola con due infermieri, two fly nurses sull'elicottero, ma molte parti in America c'è un fly nurse e un fly paramedic che fanno ipoteticamente le stesse cose. Vogliamo capire se c'è una differenza. Please.
I think the difference is the training, the initial training. Most registered nurses in the United States have a minimum of a 4-year bachelor's degree, whereas training for paramedics currently in the United States is it varies from state to state and even county to county. Some states require that they have a degree or an associate's degree, paramedics, and others require that they have a 6-month certificate. So, usually some of the small paramedic courses are 6 months, and so I don't know. It's very varied across the country. The nurses, however, have a 4-year degree plus an additional 3 to 5 years experience in ICU. So, in terms of their knowledge of medications, particularly how medications work on patients, how they interact with other medications, the whole critical care side. Paramedics generally in the United States do not work in ICUs, ever. Paramedics don't work in ICUs. They work outside on response cars, fire trucks and engines, EMS ambulances, so they don't have that knowledge of critical care. And that's why the combination of the flight nurse and flight paramedic is a really good one. However, in terms of my program where I work, we fly 2 nurses because the patients we transport, many of them are very, very sick intensive care patients. And certainly in California, it doesn't allow you to, many paramedics are not allowed to titrate different medications. They are not trained to use.
Oops. It's finished. Okay. Speak here.
Sorry about that. So that battery died. They're not trained and they're not permitted to administer many drugs like heparin, dobutamine, milrinone, levofed, etc. The county and the state requirements just don't permit them to do that. So I would say nurses training enables them to be superior in terms of knowledge of medication interactions. Now there are outliers. There are some paramedics that are super smart and they go over and above their training that they've received to be better, but that's on themselves, not something that they get as part of their formal education.
One more slide here. Yes. Quindi alla risposta di questa domanda, chiedo scusa per il microfono che purtroppo è nostro primo live e quindi ci stanno qualche problematica in corso. Allora, la domanda che hanno fatto riguardo appunto le differenze tra quello che è il fly nurse e il fly paramedic. Allora, in termini di trattamento non ci sono differenze. Sottolinea che c'è un gran rispetto tra entrambe le figure. La grossa differenza qual è? Che il fly nurse, comunque l'infermiere specialista, fa un percorso nettamente diverso rispetto a quello del paramedico. Il paramedico, a seconda delle realtà, stati, county, il paramedico ha un percorso diverso, alcune volte è una laurea, alcune volte è un corso, mentre per l'infermiere sono 4 anni per avere la bachelor, quindi avere la nostra praticamente laurea di infermieristica, e poi tutto un percorso attraverso le terapie intensive, master di specialità e quant'altro. Quindi diciamo che alla fine dei conti nel momento in cui bisogna agire, per esempio con delle medication, con dei farmaci importanti e dover decidere determinati trattamenti, sicuramente l'infermiere, in questo caso il fly nurse, è quello in charge, cioè quello in carica, quello che dà le linee di trattamento e guida anche il paramedico in quello che è il trattamento del paziente. I paramedici in tante realtà d'America possono fare molte cose rispetto a quello che è diciamo così, l'ambito italiano, per esempio, ma ci sono delle procedure come l'RSI, quindi la Rapid Sequence Intubation, che non possono essere eseguite. Ecco perché l'infermiere di volo, quindi il fly nurse, vola a supportare chiamate dove il paziente è veramente instabile, su chiamate esempio di trauma maggiore dove c'è bisogno di una gestione dal punto di vista farmacologico, sia per il dolore, sedazione, gestione via aeree, imponente e importante e immediata, e soprattutto con una formazione, un training continuo. Per chi si domanda, perché questo può essere un'altra domanda che le persone si possono fare al momento che ci stanno ascoltando online, è che tutte le skill che questi sanitari hanno vengono ripetutamente controllate e, diciamo così, migliorate attraverso dei training continui, dalla sala operatoria a training appunto con manichini ad alta fedeltà, cadaver lab come nel nostro caso in Italia. Quindi sono persone che vengono costantemente controllate, vengono costantemente formate e c'è uno scambio di crescita tra infermieri e paramedici, e tra medici, infermieri e paramedici, che questa è una cosa molto importante. Mi dicono che abbiamo un'altra domanda. Sorry Andrew, for my position. Ok, Andrew, allora una domanda che ci fanno online. So we have a question by our public in live. Is possible to get a fly along program, as me for example, with you at Stanford Life Flight or in other program around the US?
Yes, it is. Fly-along programs in the United States are pretty common at most of the big flight programs, particularly if they have a large helicopter where they can take an extra person. Stanford Life Flight, we do offer fly-along opportunities. Usually when we don't have any students training or medical residents training with us. As you know, you've come and spent a couple of days with us at Stanford. Many other flight programs do offer fly-along opportunities, so you can see firsthand of what flight nurses do. I think the best recommendation is to just look at the flight program that you're interested in's website. I know you're going to fly along at Duke in North Carolina. There's other flight programs all over the US where you could schedule fly-alongs. The best thing is to look at the website, and they usually have their fly-along program listed on the website. So yeah, just sign up, check out the website and send us an email. Stanfordflap@stanfordhealthcare.org is ours. You have to be a nurse or physician, and we get a lot of students and people, basic EMTs, and even some just lay people who are not in the medical field who want to do fly-alongs, and unfortunately we have to limit it to nurses and doctors and paramedics.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. Allora, la risposta, ringraziando Mattia per la domanda su Instagram, sì, è possibile fare delle esperienze, si chiamano Fly Along Program, in America, per chi è interessato, per poter visionare, vedere più da vicino come lavorano queste figure come il Fly Nurse e il Fly Paramedic. Per chi possa interessare, poi lascerò anche i miei contatti. Io sono circa 4 anni che ogni anno eseguo una specie di training in America con loro per poter mantenere determinate competenze e soprattutto migliorarsi ogni giorno su quello che è il trattamento del paziente critico. Io sono stato a volare con Andrew per 2 giorni, circa 2 anni fa. Sono stato a volare al Baltimore State Police e altre 2 compagnie, tra cui Vida e Scare, in cui saluto il nostro amico direttore medico David Thompson, che è quello che ci ha supportato l'anno scorso per un altro Fly Along Program, e ringrazio Matthew, I think the right name for Duke, Matthew, I don't remember, perché quest'anno sarò ospite alla Duke Life Flight in North Carolina per fare un altro Fly Along Program e vedere un'altra realtà operativa. Quindi sì, per chi è interessato, poi Andrew vi mostrerà i contatti che ho qui alle mie spalle e potete scrivere anche a me su Facebook, su Instagram, dove volete, e cercheremo di darvi una mano, perché come Andrew e altre persone mi hanno aiutato in questi ormai quasi 5 anni a girare gli Stati Uniti, sono molto propositivo a chi vuole mettersi in gioco, a chi vuole un po' cambiare la sua vita, a chi vuole vedere dell'altro e poter confrontarsi con altre figure professionali. Ok, Andrew, you want to show your contact?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I give you.
So hopefully you guys can all see behind, put contact information, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, but also Stanford Life Flight's own Facebook. If you want to see a little bit about the life of flight program and flight nurses in the United States, check out Stanford Life. Check out facebook.com and /Stanford Life Flight. It's one of the group pages. And join us. I administer the page, and we'd love to have you join us so you can see what we do on a daily basis. Feel free to email me as well, either my personal email address or my work email address. Would be great to hear from you. Also, if you're interested in getting a copy of the PowerPoint, feel free to reach out to me. I think it's also going to be put on to the EMPT Solutions website as well for you guys to have access to. So just in closing, I want to say thank you very much for inviting me as overseas faculty to the training course, and we're going to have a great time this afternoon teaching on various emergency surgical skills, and then tomorrow actually practicing them in the lab. So thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here, and I'm really grateful to EMPT Solutions for inviting me. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. If you want, after our talking, you can show your video, if you like. Ringrazio anch'io, vi chiediamo scusa per alcuni dettagli visivi o di posizioni, ma è il nostro la nostra prima conference in live e volevamo anche testare, capire le criticità di questa nuova modalità di comunicazione. E ringrazio tutti, ho visto che molte persone soprattutto su Instagram hanno partecipato, quindi vi ringrazio molto e sottolineo il progetto di MPT Solution. MPT Solution vuole portare della novità, vuole portare dell'innovazione, vuole portare un nuovo confronto, un nuovo modo di trattare, gestire e aiutare gli altri, una visione un po' più internazionale, una visione che possa portare finalmente un'unione tra quello che sono infermieri, quelli che sono medici, quelli che sono soccorritori. Quello che noi diciamo ogni volta che iniziamo questo corso è che qui siamo tutti uguali e dobbiamo uscire tutti con la stessa, o comunque avvicinarsi tutti con le stesse conoscenze, la stessa preparazione, la stessa voglia di fare, la stessa voglia di confrontarsi, perché questa è la cosa importante. MPT Solution vuole portare questo, vuole cercare attraverso questa nuova tipologia di formazione di poter cambiare qualcosa o di almeno provarci. Ringrazio ancora Andrew, thanks a lot. Was a pleasure for us to have yourself here. Vi lasciamo il finale di questo video a un video di Andrew che descrive in qualche minuto quello che è la vita a Stanford Life Flight. Grazie a tutti.
My name is Michael Balch. I've been at Stanford for just almost 2 years, but I've got 22 years in the air medical industry as a flight nurse and as a director. Stanford Life Flight is an air medical transport program that will transport patients from accident scenes to trauma centers or from outlying hospitals back to Stanford or other hospitals for specialty care services. I have a great staff here of 13 flight nurses, 4 pilots, and 2 mechanics. In addition to those people, we've got a communications center made up of communication specialists. So there are about 20 some odd communication specialists who also work with the Life Flight team, and they are a really, really essential and important cog in not only carrying out safe flight operations, but getting the patients to where they need to be. Our staff for 4 pilots are military veterans. It's not a necessity, but it's just a pool that we have. Before they're hired here, they're required to have a minimum of 3,000 hours as pilot in command. Our pilots are very experienced. Most of them have an excess of 7,000 hours. In other words, we fly in some bad weather, and they fly on night vision goggles. So they have to be trained to use the night vision goggles, and they have to be expert in navigating and landing on unprepared landing zones with the night vision goggles. Let's talk about the flight nurses. It's kind of popular to say that the flight nurses are type A personalities. They really are driven and compassionate about what they do. They are very good in the middle of chaos, but they never really show it. You know, you can check their heart rates, and in the middle of a lot of noise and confusion, their heart rates never really get up. And that's one of the things we count on for them to bring their skill, their judgment, and really this sense of calm that tells everybody else there, including the patient, that it's going to be okay. As a hospital-based program, we have to work very closely with all the other critical care departments within the hospital. When we're not flying, the nurses are often in the ICU or the emergency departments helping out in those departments, particularly when they get a heavy patient load. They're used to taking care of very sick, very complex patients. Because they're advanced skilled practitioners, they respond to code blues, they respond to stroke codes, they respond to any requests from the hospital, even to start IVs, which is a skill that they're particularly well trained and capable. years of service for Stanford Life Flight, the most remarkable thing is that 30 years has been accident-free. Safety is our priority. We train for that, we drill for that, and we talk about it in everything we do. One of the things that is most rewarding for me as a manager and a leader of this group is that I sleep really well at night, knowing that the people that we have here are on duty. It's working with an elite team and the sort of camaraderie that you get when you work with people who at times put themselves at risk. It really is the commitment to give patients the best care and to do it in the most safe way that allows me to know that they're going to leave and then they're going to come home every day.
Ok, grazie mille a tutti, vi salutiamo, vi attendiamo al prossimo meeting che si farà a novembre con Hale Wolf come ospite, flight nurse della Air Methods, che ci parlerà meglio di quello che è stata la maxi emergenza alle Torri Gemelle. Vi saluto ancora, seguiteci MPT Solutions.